can always put it in another session.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. Okay. Well, first I want you to state your name.
Okay. My name is Robert Allen Collinsworth.
What was your birth date?
I was born June 23rd, 1947. I was named after a friend of my father's during World War II. He had a friend named Alan Robert. And so I was named after him.
Okay. And he was like, was he on the naval ship that Grandpa was on during the war? Or?
Yeah, he was on the ship that Dad served on. I can't remember the name of it.
What's your father's name?
Earl B. Collinsworth. The B stands for Burns.
Oh, okay. So he named his first child after a
friend.
A friend. Because you are the oldest child of 9, right?
Right. Yeah. And Bill, I don't know where he came up with Billy Ray, my brother,
Mm-hmm.
Who was the second oldest child.
Right. Did he name any of the kids after him at all?
No. Well, I take that back. Brian, his first name is Earl, but it's Brian, Earl
Right.
Brian, instead of Earl Burns.
Okay. Okay. The first question I want to ask you is, what's your earliest memory? The oldest one you have.
I remember I was probably 4 or 5 years old. It was before I went to school. In the summertime, we'd go and, as a family, Bill and I, Mom and Dad, we'd get up real early and we'd go cut grapes on the weekends. We made extra money doing that. Dad was a tile setter at that time, and we did that with the family. The family would go and cut grapes. We did that a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
I remember mostly, though, of going up to Bryant Dam as a family and swimming in the lake.
Where's Bryant Dam?
It's above Fresno, probably about 25 miles or so. And the dam itself, my dad worked on. The dam was built back in the 30s,
Okay.
1930s.
Not the 1830s.
Not the 1830s.
Okay. And what specifically do you remember? Any feelings or emotions or?
I remember that there was a little girl that about my age that would work with us, but she didn't have a top on, and I wanted to buy her a top.
You wanted to buy her a shirt, even at 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Okay. What was it like being the oldest child in your family? How do you feel like your experience in the family was different from maybe your brothers and sisters?
I think there was a sense of responsibility. I was always given more responsibility in caring for the kids, because there were so many eventually that.
Yeah.
But yeah, just more responsible.
Who do you of all those kids? Presumably, you remember the births of many of them. Who was the first one you remember being born into the family?
Carol.
Carol. Okay, and
Bill's I had only been about 2 years old when Bill was born, but
right.
So I don't remember that. But Carol, see, there was a time lag there. I was about 8 or 9 years old when Carol was born.
Okay.
And so I do remember that, and it was also about the time that we moved from Pinedale, which is kind of like a bedroom community off of Fresno, Fresno. We moved from there to Santa Rosa. And so Dad had rented a house here and went to work here with his brother Russ. And but Carol was born about that time. She was born in Fresno, but still a tiny baby when.
Right. So it was you and Bill for a good portion of years before
Yeah, about
the deluge
about 8
of
years.
children.
we were the only two children for about 8 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That had to be a big change to go from being raised in a world where it's just you and your brother for so long, and then all of a sudden other kids start entering in. I mean, that had to be a shift.
I don't think we noticed it, or I did. I noticed that because we had other people, kids, live with us. Like Dorotha Lee. She was a daughter of my dad's sister, and she was pretty much not wanted. And Ruth had sold one of her daughters and pretty much gave Dorothy away. She did keep 2 other daughters, Patty and I can't remember the other daughter's name. We weren't real close at that time, so it's I don't remember Ruth's the other daughter's name offhand.
Okay. What were your favorite subjects in school?
Lunch.
Okay, aside from that.
I've always kind of liked history, and I like to read.
As a kid, though?
Yeah,
growing
as
up?
a kid, I was. They had a program where you could buy books, pocket books, and made available through the schools. And so about the 4th and 5th grade, they made a bunch of, well, a little magazine came out, and on the back of the magazine had 10 or 15 books that they were offering for sale. And they were like 15, 25 cents a piece.
Yeah.
I'm like, which was big money. It was quite a bit of money back then.
Yeah.
But still, I would buy 1 or 2 pocketbooks and read them. And a lot of them were major novels that were cut down.
Oh, okay. Condensed versions.
Yeah, a kid's version.
Right.
But I enjoyed that. And I really enjoyed going to the bookstore, used bookstore, and my cousins and I, Paul, David, and Bill, we used to hang around bookstores and old bookstores and get pocketbooks and stuff. We enjoyed that. I enjoyed the World War II novels and histories that were available. And still do. I still enjoy historical novels, and I've got, I guess, a plethora of reading. It's just if something catches my eye, I'll read it.
Right. Right.
It's just.
There's no doubt that your father was a huge influence on your life, as most fathers are. What was it like, do you feel, what was unique about being raised by your father specifically, and also, of course, keeping the fact that he was in World War II, the fact that he had that experience and then came back and had his family and all of that stuff? What do you think was unique about being raised by your dad who had been in World War II?
I don't think the war itself had much to do with anything that I dealt with my dad. However, my dad was a very, very unique personality. He didn't know, nobody was a stranger to him. He could walk up to anyone and talk to him. And I mean anyone. He could walk up to a millionaire and, like Dad says, he puts his pants on the same way I do. So,
Right. There's
you know, and so,
equanimity.
and he was the kind of personality when he walked into a room, everybody turned and looked to him. Everybody was a friend, and he was extremely easy to talk to. And he was, you know, honestly interested in you. He let you feel that you were important. And so, as kids, we constantly got from other kids, I wish my dad was, your dad was my dad.
Mhm.
You know, I just, I got that all the time. And of course, being a child, what's so special about my dad?
Yeah.
You know, yeah, I liked him, and from time to time he beat my butt. That's not special.
He spanks like every other one.
Yeah. But he was, you know, growing up with him, he worked, and he was always gone working. But you know what? When he was home, we were an important part of his life.
Right.
You know, so he was always involved in our lives, in scouting and that type of thing. Yeah, it was important to us at that time.
Yeah. Okay. Tell me about your friends growing up. Who were your best friends growing up?
Well, I had several. One was, off the top of my head, Billy Call. He was probably, he was a year older than I was.
Now, what time frame were we talking here? What age?
Well, we were here in Fresno, or in Santa Rosa, and we had moved several times. And so I would say probably 1960. Yeah, about 59, 60.
So about
when I
maybe
started
12
in
or
Cub
13
Scouts,
years old.
yeah, when I started in Cub Scouts, Billy Call and his brother were involved in that. Dad and Billy's father, Bill Call, became very, very close friends, and they lived just around the corner from us, this next street over. We lived on Rose Avenue, and they lived on Mesa Way.
Mhm.
So they had, I think there was 3 boys and a girl. Chris and Jan and Billy. There was one other boy. I can't think of his name. He was the youngest. But anyway, yeah, Billy was one of my closest friends, and then his next door neighbor. Over the years, you know, a few years later, became my best friend. His last name was Van Hoy, and that was in junior high school. And you know, when we went to high school, he went to a different high school than I did, and so we kind of got separated then.
Well, there's no doubt that the world was different back then. What did you guys do to have fun? What were some of the things you guys enjoyed doing outside of school?
Family-wise, we enjoyed going to the Hard Tops.
What's that?
That's let's see, that would have been in the 60s. So usually vehicles, cars in the 50s, 40s and 50s were cut down and made into race cars.
Mm-hmm.
Jalopies,
Mm-hmm.
is what they call them. And generally the fenders were taken off of them, and they were gutted, and a framework was welded inside of them to make them sturdy to where if they roll over or something like that, the driver would be protected. But we would go to the racetrack, which well, there was a couple of them in Santa Rosa, but they would run around a quarter-mile track. Maybe it was a half. No, it was a quarter-mile track, and they would generally have anywhere from 10 to 20 cars running in a circle,
Yeah.
trying to beat one another. And in the process, there would be some spectacular crashes and rollovers, and our favorite event was the destruction derby.
Mm-hmm.
And probably 2 or 3 times a year, they would get the drivers would get old cars that were made safe. The gas tanks were moved to where they were in the center of the car, to where they wouldn't be hit. Glass was taken out because back then they really didn't have the safety glass, and so a lot of that was removed and screen was put in. And sometimes they would remove them. Well, in the destruction derbies, they didn't move the radiator, but the cars would basically run backwards so that they wouldn't destroy the radiator. Because once you destroyed the radiator, which is the cooling system of the car, then it would overheat and burn up. It would just not burn, fire.
Right.
But it would just
The engine will burn.
the engine would freeze up.
Yeah.
It would get so
So
hot.
they drove backwards?
Well, they drove in reverse and used the back of the car as a ram rather than using the front.
So they were still front facing, they just modified the vehicle, or?
No, they're still front facing. They drove frontwards and they set frontwards, but they run in reverse to keep the radiator from getting damaged.
Right.
And of course, the goal of the driver was to hit the radiator. So he was trying to come in
Oh, I see.
to knock the other. And so and the whole point of the thing was the last guy driving,
Right.
the last car moving was the
That
winner.
does sound like fun. And you went with your family to go see those?
Oh yeah, Dad and I and Mom, all of us. Well, in fact, is the night I was born, Mom and Dad had gone to the races in Fresno, and Mom says she didn't know whether the races or the watermelon. She ate a whole watermelon the day, because somebody said that if you ate a whole watermelon, you'd give birth. So we don't know whether that was it or the excitement of the races. I was born that day or that night.
Okay, so, what's your favorite color and why?
Blue.
Blue?
Blue. It's. I think it's just a calming color.
Okay. What are the best lessons your parents taught you? You know, growing up, I mean, just kind of reflecting back on how you were raised and stuff like that. What are some of the lessons you truly appreciate? And what are some of them that you feel you've had to revise?
Boy. I think my parents, they were a really good example of family. They weren't involved in the church. They, not when I was a kid, they weren't. But they had good values, strong family values. If somebody in the family had a need, then they were always there. I remember several times couples, families coming and living with us because they had problems. They were in between jobs or trying to move from one area to another, one thing or another. They would they came and lived with us on a short-term basis. I remember Wayne and Gloria moved up here. Wayne had gotten into the franchise. It wasn't Kentucky Fried Chicken. It was Kentucky Fried Chicken. They had gotten involved in that franchise, and Dad helped them. Pretty soon they got a store in, I think it was in Nevada. And my experience in the restaurant, I tried to tell Wayne that they're going to take everything from you and not give anything back. It's a really hard business to be in. They expect 100% out of you, and I mean 100%. And they did that. They used him and Gloria. I mean, there was times when the kids were sick, and Gloria tried to stay home with the kids when they were sick, and the restaurant people said, "No, she's got to be there at work. She can't be home with the kids." And so that.
So they had purchased a location and were running it.
I don't think they purchased it. I think it was a franchise they were leasing or something of that nature. I don't think they purchased it.
Okay.
But they went in as management, and it burned them up, it ate them up, and they just, after several years, it just wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
It was they were giving, the family was not anything the business recognized. It was, they expected 100% out of their people, and I mean, there was no room for negotiation.
Yeah, or life outside of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we kind of deviated off of the question a little bit, the best lessons taught you. Okay, what are some of the things that you had to revise?
I had to revise?
Yeah.
I don't think I had to revise really. I don't think I had to revise anything. I was in a very unique situation for people of my age and younger, is that I got an opportunity to work with my dad in my adult life.
Mm-hmm.
And we were in the same business. I worked for him for probably 10 years, and worked around him for several years, working for a different company.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to see my dad in a different light than most people get to see their parents. And so I got to see him as an employee, as a boss of the company. I got to see him as a friend, and as a counselor. He came to me and asked me counsel. And so I think that was a really, really unique relationship that not many people get to have with their parents.
Right.
And so, in that respect, I think my dad and I really got along really well. I mean, we didn't agree on everything.
Sure.
And there were times that he gave me advice that I couldn't go along with. I just did not agree with it whatsoever.
Yeah.
And so, and I told him, I'm not gonna do that. And in his frame of reference as he grew up, it was quite logical how he responded to a situation that I was in. And I can understand where he was coming from, but for me and for the times that I live in, I couldn't go along with it. And I just told him no.
It's nice. Me and Star have that. I go to her a lot for advice and stuff. And I feel like it really helps her to develop. She's developed a lot of self-esteem, you know, out of me going to her for advice and her recognizing that she has intelligence to offer
Yeah.
the person that raised
Well,
her.
they do. I
you know.
mean, that's it. That when you're asked for advice, you're being validated.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and so if that request for advice comes from someone older than you are, a parent,
Yeah, especially parents
that's,
that you look up
you know,
to.
that's quite a validation for you.
Yeah, for sure. When you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I started out as wanting to be a surgeon or a doctor,
Mm-hmm.
and it changed when I started high school, or I should say, I started junior college. I decided I wanted to go into law enforcement, and I got sidetracked and went into the restaurant business
Mm-hmm.
instead. I spent 6 years or so working for Sambo's restaurant chain, which is a very good chain. I started out as a dishwasher, and I think it was in junior college, beginning of junior college, or just starting junior college when I went to work for them as a dishwasher. It was, you know, kind of like part-time work while I went to school,
Mm-hmm.
and it just evolved from there. I went up to management.
Mm-hmm.
One of the cute experiences I had was there was an article in the newspaper that they wanted to take applications. So the Sambo's restaurant was on College and Mendocino Avenue on the corner, and there, right next to it was a big motel. So anyway, they said for everybody to meet at this motel and to get applications and to meet the manager there and fill out your application. Well, I went early. I had a suit on. I put a white shirt and pants on, slack pants on, dress shoes, tie, and I went early and nobody was there, and I was there to go to work as a dishwasher.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to present myself the best I could, you know, so I showed up, and the car pulls up, and this young guy gets out, and he walks over to me and is this where we're supposed to sign up for dishwasher jobs? I said, yes it is. I said, by the way, how old are you? He said, well, I'm 16. I said, I'm sorry, son, you're just too young. He got back in the car and drove off. I was 18. I'm sorry, son, you're just too young. Well, you had to get rid of the competition
I guess
somehow.
so. Man, he's a shark. What's something a person would need to know about you in order to know you?
That is hard to say. That's really hard to say. I think they need to know that I was really kind of a very private individual, but I'm also, it's funny, I'm extrovert, but I'm also very introvert. Probably the extremes.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like my weight.
Right.
Extreme.
Okay. Let's that's funny because I'm kind of that way. I'm really fine with total strangers, you know. But then the kind of getting closer to people, you know, on a more of a relationship level, that's very difficult for me for some reason. I'm very closed off in a lot of areas.
Well, I can get up in front of the group and talk. And
Exactly.
I'm not really nervous about it
Mm-hmm.
if I've got something to say.
Yeah.
And even if I don't. But, yeah, it's, I probably put out a shell that kind of keeps everybody back. I mean, it's hard for anybody to get
Sure.
through that shell to
Yeah.
who I really am.
Right.
you know.
Okay. You have a very strong morality base that is self-sustaining. What would you say developed that trait in you?
Well, I think it comes from parenting. It's
From having parented?
well,